Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DiFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco over at LaMarzoccoUSA.com. They have been in the business of hand-making espresso machines for almost 100 years. Since 1927, they make them in Florence, Italy. Ever since the beginning, this company has been dedicated to innovation, dependability, and beauty, and it shows in their products. Go to LaMarzoccoUSA.com to see the kind of espresso machines that they produce and the equipment they carry to outfit your bar for success. Machines like the KB90 with straight-in locking portafilters. You've got manual espresso machines like the Leva. You have the classic Linea profile of the Linea PB with all of the upgraded technology to allow baristas ultimate control of extractions and many more options as well. And if you appreciate consistency, reliability, a workhorse espresso machine that looks beautiful in the process of supporting your business, then you're probably thinking of a La Marzocco. So again, at LaMarzoccoUSA.com, find more information or email info@LaMarzoccoUSA.com. Talk to their salespeople and let them equip you with the best equipment for your shop. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rattleware over at rattleware.com. Smallwares are a big deal in the coffee shop. They're a big deal because you trust that they're going to work. Some of the things that you think, it would be really terrible if this broke, they're larger pieces of equipment, but sometimes we don't think about the dysfunction of some of the smaller pieces. That's why Rattleware is dedicated to making smallwares that just work and providing you with the peace of mind that you need to run a coffee shop. Whether you're talking about whisks or pitchers or tampers and shot glasses and everything in between, go to rattleware.com and find out what they have to offer in the way of smallwares that just work. That's over at rattleware.com. Okay, everyone. Well, today we're going to be talking about exit interviews and why you absolutely need to conduct them. One of the things I think happens when somebody quits is we say, good riddance. Oh, they quit and maybe they're frustrating you and you're like, okay, fine, they're leaving. And I already know why they're leaving, right? I already know the reasons. I see it. I don't need to do an exit interview, or it's a shock to you and you don't understand why they're leaving, but you almost don't want to ask. And so you just kind of let them leave and you're left by yourself trying to figure it out. So many people don't do this. It's almost like the phenomenon of requiring on your application references, but never calling references. It just doesn't make sense. I think exit interviews are probably one of the best tools that you have to help you create a better environment for everybody, especially for your staff. The reason why is because exit interviews are unique. They're unique in that somebody who is already leaving has nothing to lose. And you say, well, they shouldn't be scared of me. I'm not scary. If you're unlike me over here with my naturally furrowed brow and my angry resting face, you might be a lot more gregarious. You might be a lot more approachable in that way. And yet, the most bubbly, benign person among us still has this weight of authority that creates a bit of a repulsion. Like people don't want to give you all the information. They just, whether it's that or they also feel as though they need to internalize their struggles and not ask for help. They need to figure it out themselves. They just don't share. Even if you build a culture of feedback, that is at best going to allow people to share a larger percentage of what they're thinking or feeling, but not all of it. It's just the way it is. We're fighting against this barrier that power and authority brings in the relationship. And we need bosses, we need leaders. But this is just the nature of working in an environment that has various levels of authority. The exit interview, now that that person is no longer working for you, essentially, they have a degree of freedom to share their experience with you in a way that they previously didn't. And maybe it's not under the best of circumstances, but in the worst situation, they're going to be super candid right? They're going to be very upfront and they'll relish the opportunity to give you a piece of their mind. The question is, are you able to take it? And will you write it off? Even if it comes from an emotional place. Let's say you're the type of person who, when a customer has a problem with something that you've done and they write a negative review, you're more concerned with saving face than you are making a solution for a legitimate problem. Well, then you might also be the type of person to reject feedback when it threatens your security and who you thought you were and who you thought you were showing up into work. But you need to prepare yourself to receive this kind of feedback from people because you're not going to get it right. And we did talk about this recently on an episode talking about how it's okay to make mistakes. And it's also okay for people in the process to be frustrated at your mistakes because you yourself get frustrated at other people for their mistakes and for doing things that are sometimes not even mistakes. They're habits that are actually systemically problems that should have been solved. And at that point, there really isn't an excuse anymore. It's not really a mistake, it's a pattern. And that's ultimately what you're trying to find from these exit interviews. When you set up an exit interview, it should be in a public place, not in an office, non threatening, casual, but with the intent to listen. Listen very closely, be curious, don't judge what they're saying, don't even think about being defensive. Receive it. Interesting. Thank you. Process it. You might want to advocate for yourself and say, wait a second, that's not true or whatever. But it's neither here nor there because you're going to shut down that communication. Your job here is figure out why they're leaving. And then if what they said isn't true, they're leaving anyway. You don't have to believe it. But by shutting it down in the moment, you also are going to shut down some things that they might share that are actually helpful. So we can't really demand that all of the most helpful information also come to us in the most kind-hearted and silver platter kind of ways. That's just not the way that you get critical feedback. So in these exit interviews, you set it up for no longer than 20 minutes. This person isn't incentivized to necessarily share a lot with you. I have had exit interviews with people that have left some of the people that are clients of mine. And it's really interesting what is shared. And for the most part, they're actually fairly positive. It's just an ill fit or something is going on that it's very helpful for the situation to give that information and say, hey, these are things that they are pointing out that are actually very good. It's good feedback to consider for how you are going to show up as a boss in the future. That's what you're trying to get here. Do I have a pattern that I don't see that is pushing you away? Am I perpetually forgetting things that should be always remembered, that should be prioritized, that I'm not prioritizing? And for you, you've just reached this emotional point where it's just too much, you can't overcome it, and you have to separate from the company because there's too many triggers. And unfortunately, some of my behavior might be behind that. You can't find that stuff out unless you seek it out. And I guarantee you, a lot of the turnover rate in the business of coffee is because of these types of behaviors or these systemic issues brought on by a lack of curiosity from leadership and about how they can fix things as people leave. So don't forsake the idea of exit interviews. If somebody leaves, just assume that they have some more to share. And if they want to grace you, and they can, by the way, they can say no. They don't have to give you an exit interview. It's not required. They did put their 2 weeks in, right? But if you say, can we have an exit interview? And they say yes, go in there with a deep listening mentality. We talked about this with Oscar Trimbley on the show. Look up that episode. Go in there with the idea that you're finding clues about how to improve yourself and your business. This person is reflecting to you a lot of things, some of which might just be unhelpful and a lot of which might be very helpful. That's why you don't render judgment right in the moment, but you do collect the information and do it with grace, do it with kindness and care, and then move forward from there and learn from the experience. Okay. So that's my advice to you today is get those exit interviews going. That's for people who are leaving on good terms, whether they're just going back to college or they're going back to their hometown and they wish they could stay, still have an exit interview with them. How was your time here? Tell me more. How can we improve? You know, the most satisfied and lovely person might still have some really good ideas and feedback. It might actually turn out to be a really cool meeting where you get super encouraged by somebody who says, you know what, I don't have anything. And I just want to say, I love this place and I love you and I love what you guys are doing. And, that happens as well in these exit interviews. And so it happens on a spectrum. You can have some really hard moments and you can have some super encouraging ones, but have them. That's the point. Have those exit interviews. And yeah, I hope that's helpful. So I am really grateful for you all listening to the show. Don't forget to subscribe and also share on social media as you see posts come up from Keys to the Shop. Check out the YouTube channel as well. Be sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell on YouTube. And as always, I'll see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break. From Keys to the Shop.